Hey everyone, I'm Steve Wade, and I'm a recovering awkward person. So, and judging by people's faces, I'm in good company, right? So my awkwardness peaked when I used GitOps at a wedding, right? You can just imagine how the bride felt. So this is completely interactive. This is not me going to be behind the lectern presenting to you. We're going to be standing up, we're going to be sitting down, we're going to be doing some things that you guys are going to feel a little bit awkward doing. So what I want you to do is I want you to scan the QR code. I'll take questions at the end. You can upvote them. I'll take them in priority order. If we don't get to the end of all of the questions, come and grab me afterwards. The QR code also has a subsequent set of questions that we're going to go through. So keep the QR code and that web page open. So before we start, and I talk, hey.
Can somebody tell us what the Wi-Fi is?
I thought that was already a solved problem. Can someone from Veracode help the guys get on the Wi-Fi? It's Veracode guest, but I think you need a Veracode email to be able to log in. Isn't 5 and 4G a thing? There's a what, sorry?
It's very
Okay, I'll monologue. So,
no, you can't read out. There's too many things.
you can't read it out.
No.
Okay. You're just going to have to shout out. So, before we start, and I talk about how I transform from this awkward person to someone that can help teams improve their platform stability and also their communication, I want 30 seconds of brutal honesty, right, from all of you. This is where we're going to start. So what percentage of your actual technical brilliance do you think others perceive? So let's give it a minute. So I'll let them keep coming in, right? And if we look, it's about half of us. So there's about 100 really technical engineers in here, but we can't, our perception and our perceived brilliance doesn't match. So we've got a problem, right? And because of Zoom, I have to keep doing this. So I want to start with this percentage. So 73% of projects fail, not because of any technical issue, any coding issue, someone's used AI, someone hasn't used AI. This is sheer communication breakdown. Right, this is people not being able to talk to each other. And I want to start with this critical insight, right? The absence of words is not the absence of communication. So when you're sitting in a meeting, chair back a little bit, arms crossed, you're communicating. When I come to your desk and ask you a question and you're standing looking, or you're sitting maybe, looking at your screen, you're communicating. When someone tries to have a conversation with you and you're too busy on Twitter trying to work out the next stupid thing that Elon Musk is doing, you're also communicating. And all of you are communicating with me right now. Some of you pretty well. Some of you, we're going to get better at it. But you haven't said anything to me, right? So remember that communication isn't just the words that you say. And we're going to come on to that in a little bit later. So I want you to be introduced to Sarah. Right, so Sarah was a senior platform engineer in a platform team that I was working with. Absolute genius. So her job, she was tasked to come up with a design to sort out our performance issues for our platform. She created this masterpiece, right? Little proof of concept, great code, great documentation along the way. Project didn't go anywhere. Why? Anyone who hasn't a guess? Why didn't the project go anywhere? She's got a lovely POC, code is great, architecture looks pretty good. Shout it out.
No stakeholder buy-in?
Correct. No value from the stakeholders. And what does that come down to? She can't communicate. If she can't effectively communicate, how is she going to get people to do anything? So think about the next conversations that you've had recently, right? Maybe you've been in boardrooms and trying to convince people to get you budget. Or maybe you're trying to get a promotion at work. That's the level of communication, and that's why it's so important. We have to be able to effectively communicate as engineers. And in my mind, the most critical thing that we can do is learn how to be effective communicators. It's way more interesting and way more valuable than learning the next AI revolution, the next enormous database. If we can effectively communicate, we can become extremely successful and extremely influential. So I want to start with this paradox, right? I think that we're experts talking to computers, right? We can talk to them in multiple different languages, right? We can write algorithms. We can write these systems that can connect billions of people together. But I guarantee you, if I asked you to talk to the person next to you, you'd find it really, really awkward, right? Why is that? Right? That's because we're not debugging our communication. When's the last time you debugged a conversation? Never. Right? When's the last time you optimized your communication patterns? How do you talk to someone more senior than you? How do you talk to somebody at the same level as you? How do you talk to a junior? How do you talk to somebody that you're mentoring? Right? These are all important ways that we need to be able to adapt. But for some reason, we don't. So I want you to try something. I told you it was going to be interactive. Everybody stand up. You thought you were getting away with this easily, right? So what I want you to do is I want you to sit down if you've seen your idea not get executed because you couldn't talk about it effectively. Some of you have to sit down, otherwise you're lying. Okay, next. Sit down if you've seen someone less technical than you get promoted. And I want to work where you work. So the next one is I want you to sit down when you think that you can convince me to do something, but actually in hindsight, I'm just ignoring you. Okay, so you are an effective communicator and you think you can successfully convince me being anybody, by the way, not just me personally, but actually the person's just nodding along at you and saying, yeah, you know. Right, so you can sit down because I just got you to nod, right? See, I didn't communicate with you. I just used my hands and I got you to do exactly what I wanted. Right, it's the art of communication. It's not just what we do with our mouths and how we speak. The rest of you can sit down. I'm not going to get you to stand up for the whole thing. So let's talk about communication like we think of a stack, right? What's layer one in our stack? Shout out. What's the foundational building blocks of good communication? What do we think?
Eye contact.
Okay. Anyone else?
Body language.
Anyone else? Okay. Non-verbal communication. Body language. Exactly. Crossing my arms. So now what I want you to do is I want you to all cross your arms. Feels comfortable, right? Now cross them the other way. Oh, a little bit awkward. Getting a little bit, upset with yourself that you can't do it. Right? That's because non-verbal communication or your body language is so deeply ingrained in your muscle memory, you have to have you have to really mentally think about changing it. Right? Some of you are even trying it still. Layer two, vocal delivery. Pitch, pace, tone, volume. That's vocal delivery. 3, content. They're the actual words, what we say. Hopefully they're making sense to people. Layer 4, context. What do I mean by context? We talk about context in programming. What do I mean by context in communication?
What's happening around us?
Okay. Do you want to elaborate? So you said what's going on? Okay, but I can communicate with layers 1 to 3, right? So what's my context? This is the bit that no one thinks about.
What are you speaking about?
Correct. Who is my audience? Who is my audience? Right? The way that I communicate to a junior engineer is going to be different to how I talk to the CTO. So I can be a master at 1 and 3, but if I suck at 4, guess what? He's not going anywhere. Right? So all of these layers of the stack work the same way as layers in any stack that we know in IT. They work great when they all work together, but a breakdown in one is a total and utter breakdown in all 4 of them. So now we're going to debug our voice. How? You're going to find out. So what I want you to do is I want you to find someone next to you, and we're going to say this sentence. We're going to say, the deployment failed again. right? Say it to the person next to you. To start with, hold on. Don't jump the gun. I know all engineers like to jump the gun. Slow down, right? We're gonna read the design document first. I want you to say it like you're absolutely terrified, right? But when you say it, watch the other person's facial expressions. Don't listen to what they're saying. Watch their body language. Go. Okay. Next, I want you to say it like you're really angry. Be frustrated with that person, right? You're really why has this deployment failed again? Why? Why? Okay. Now, I didn't think you were going to have this much fun, I'll be honest. Okay, so now what I want you to do is I want you to imagine that you're being very, very sarcastic and you find the whole thing absolutely hilarious, right? You're the senior engineer and you're now speaking to a junior and the junior's broke the build again, right? Watch the facial expressions when you try and do it in a subtly hilarious way. You find the whole thing funny, right? Go. Watch the facial expressions. You broke the build again. Okay, stop. So what did you notice? Same 4 words, probably 3 completely different body languages. Facial expressions were different. Face muscles were slightly torn back when people were angry, right? So when you're in a meeting, you're in a boardroom, or maybe you're on Zoom, how many of you are watching people's facial expressions, or are you just simply listening to what they're saying? Facial expressions. Words only. Okay, next question. When you go on Zoom, how close is your face to the webcam? So if I had a conversation with someone this close, is it quite intimidating? Right? But if I had it this close, does it feel a little bit more friendly? So the next time you're on Zoom, think about how far your face is away from your camera. Because you're screaming to the person when you're not actually meant to, right? You can be having the loveliest conversation, but the fact that they see you this close and it's like, hi, I've joined Zoom, right? That's all perception. So one of the things that I recommend to people to do, especially when they connect to Zoom, is that your webcam should be an arm's length away from where you're standing or sitting. So if you put your arm out like this, put your index finger out and you can touch the front of your webcam, that's about as far as you want to be away from your webcam. You'll start to have different kinds of conversations. Why? Why move back?
So the client can actually see your entire face itself and we're not too much zoomed in.
I can use these, right? I can use my body language. I can gesticulate, right? If I'm screaming at someone's face, they can't see my body language at all. They just simply see my face.
Also, I think it makes it more natural. That you simulate sitting around a table.
It does. Yep, exactly. So there's one of the things that I'd recommend, I don't have it on the slide, is the study of proxemics, which is essentially distances. And what you'll notice is your webcam is basically in sexy timer or a little bit further away zone, right? It's an intimate space or a private space. It's where everyone, when they get on the tube, ends up standing, right? It's too close to people. And actually, if we come back to what you were saying, public space round a boardroom or round a table, right? I can just about reach the person and put my arm around them if I want to. Maybe I don't. That's the distance that you want to be. So I told you that we would stand back from the webcam because I want you to be able to show non-verbal communication. So everyone put their hands up. These are the most important things that you can use when you communicate. So on average, the brain takes in hand signals about 12.5 to 13% more than anything that comes out your mouth. Right? So I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to explain a really simplistic, or some people may think complicated, programming concept, and I'm not going to say anything. Right? Okay. What was it?
For loop.
Bingo. I didn't say a single thing. All right, so my body language can talk to the most senior or the most junior engineer just by simply showing my hands. Say again? It was a for loop. I need to get better at that, obviously. So that's why, and we hear the age-old adage, right, that a picture speaks 100 or 1,000 words. I've just shown you, right, something very, very basic, but how powerful your hands can be. And they're a very underutilized tool when it comes to communication. And if you notice the gentleman that stood up and I went like this and told him that he was just going to agree, what ended up happening is he started nodding. So I can subconsciously, without even saying anything, get you to do something. Right? It's a very, very powerful technique. Don't use this one, but use it to your advantage. Think about where you might want to use it, right? Maybe when you're negotiating, maybe when you're trying to get a promotion. Let's go on to less aggressive ones, right? So we talk about the steeple. Does anyone know the steeple stance? So the steeple stance is when you stand like this, right? And you're contemplating, right? And you look like a steeple. So everyone do the steeple. What you're gonna. Do you notice anything? Do you immediately feel like people are going to listen to you? People are going to take you quite seriously, right? Then we need to work on that a little bit more, right? But the body tricks the mind, right? Actually, the way that you initiate and execute and move your body is extremely powerful. The next one, what I call the platter. The platter is putting your hands out like this. When I met some of you this evening, around there, you would have seen that I said, "Hi, nice to meet you." Right? Why did I do this? It's completely open, right? I'm not here to offend you. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. If I did, I apologize. It's very, very welcoming. It's open, right? It's time to connect and collaborate and communicate. The other end of that is what I call the leveler. That's the hands on the table. This conversation's closed. Please leave the boardroom. I'm done with you. Be careful where you use that. It's one of the options. So, say again?
What is it?
So the leveler is essentially your palms down. So if I do this to you, it's a pretty aggressive stance, right? So I don't think that this is going to go anywhere. Or I don't think this is going to go anywhere. But it still comes across as aggressive, and I'm still actually being quite nice to you. But it's probably not going to go anywhere. A little bit more friendly. So again, like we said before, layers of the stack. We can success or fail based on all four of them. So we've covered a couple of techniques, but what I'm interested in is where do you need them most? And that's the next question. So do you need them in explaining technical concepts to non-technical people, getting buy-in for your architectural decisions, speaking in meetings, or negotiating salary and promotions? Where do you think you need those the most? That doesn't surprise me. Everyone's architecture just gets agreed, right? No one really cares. Exactly, right? And if you actually look at these two, these are probably the most two important ones for you in your career, right? This one is definitely important, but these two are the most important. Right? How do I speak to people? How do I collaborate with people? So now let's debug connections, right? Human connection, human communication. So when I communicate with people, I communicate with them using this pattern. I call it the triple P. So the first thing I do is preview, right? So I am going to explain to you a concept that allows my audience to be able to retain information better. Then I present it properly, right? So it produces and creates multiple neural pathways by providing different context to the users who are listening. Present it again. Imagine you're driving down the motorway and you're maybe looking at your GPS or looking at road signs, or you're speaking to the person sat next to you in the passenger seat and you're trying to guarantee the way. The same principle works when you communicate. Why do I think this is so effective? What did you notice? What did I do when I previewed? I set the context, told people what I was going to explain to you. Then I presented it. I got technical for a second, right? Then I presented it again, but I slightly reduced the level of complexity, right? This is because I don't know who I'm talking to right now. Right, I could be talking to extremely senior people, I could be talking to juniors, I could be talking to the intern. I have generally no idea who I'm communicating with, right? But if I can present in these 3 patterns, I'm not going to negate anyone in the audience. And the whole idea is that the thing that you're trying to convey reaches the end destination. But one or more of these pathways will hopefully get there. The other option, or the other possible outcome, is none of them do. Right, none of them get to the user's mind, no one understands what you're saying, well then probably revisit what you're talking about, right, and how you're communicating. And that kind of comes onto something that I call the 5-second test. So we will never deploy untested code to production, right? Let's be honest, we all have. For a minute, just to admit that you don't. So why, when we go into really critical conversations, do we not test the conversation? Why do we just go straight in the boardroom and just verbally vomit everywhere and then wonder why nothing ever gets done, right? And it's because you haven't done the tests before. You haven't executed the tests before you write the code. So this is what I call the 5-second test. So the 5-second test works by you going and getting a friendly face, someone that respects you and someone that you respect. And you practice this critical conversation with them. Their job is 2 things. 1, not to fall asleep. The second one is to reply back to you what you just talked about in under 5 seconds. And I kid you not, start a timer and tell them to stop when it gets to 5 seconds. If they can't explain what you've just tried to talk to them about, it's quite clearly too complicated and you're not going to get where you want to get to. We should be practicing the way that we communicate constantly. Right, it's extremely, extremely important. So, talking about that, I want to talk to you about the power of the right query. So what I want you to do is I want you to talk to the person next to you, like we did before. But this time, I want you to just introduce yourself to them the same way that you would introduce anyone yourself to anyone before. So go ahead, talk to the person next to you. Imagine that you're meeting for the very first time. Go. Okay, stop. Stop. Okay. So, okay, stop. Enough introductions. Okay, so hands up. Who asked this question? Hey, what do you do? Okay. So anyone, hey, what do you do? Someone must have said, hey, what do you do? Okay. Next, I want you to imagine that you've met this person many, many times, but you haven't seen them in about 6 months. What do you ask them? You ask them, hey, how are you? Guess what? That's what I call conversation dead ends. Right, they're boring. Right? It's like asking a generic query and expecting something fantastic to come back. You're just going to get a null string, or it's going to be one of these, right? Some simple plain text. You're not even going to get JSON back, right? It's going to be good, thanks, fine, thanks, I'm a developer. Guess what these are? These are what I call transactional conversations, right? Hi, how are you? I'm fine, thanks. What do you do? Oh, I'm a developer. Oh crap, I've run out of things to ask you now, right? So how can you build an influence and get people on your side if you ask transactional conversations, or you have a transactional conversation? So shout out what you think really subconsciously the other person's thinking when they say, hey, what do you do? What do you think subconsciously the other person's thinking? Take a guess.
Is this person of interest to me?
How much is this person worth? So imagine I came up to you and you asked me, hey, what do you do? And I said to you, I'm the cleaner. You've already got a preconception of me immediately. Whether you want to admit it or not, there's a preconception. I would have a preconception. I'd be like, shit, I've got nothing to talk to about this person. I don't clean. I have a cleaner, right? So what I want to introduce you to is the phrase that changed how I collaborate and communicate with people. Have I been working on anything exciting recently? So now what I want you to do is I want you to ask the person next to you, hey, how have you been working on anything exciting recently? Watch a couple of things. Watch facial expression. Watch the type of communication that you get back from asking that question. Go. Okay, stop. 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 This microphone really doesn't work. Stop. Okay, by the fact that you're still talking, the conversation didn't end. Therefore, it was a successful question that was asked. Hey.
Except if you haven't, then you feel really embarrassed.
Well, then you can have follow-up questions to that, right? So the follow-up question is, okay, let's debug exactly why this works, right? So have you been, right? That's present perfect tense, right? At some point, have you been, right? So that could be yesterday, last week, working on, right? I don't want the outcome. I want the effort and the process. I don't care about whether you've got, I don't know, whether you've just deployed 100 new microservices. That's great, right? But actually what I'm more interested in is how did you do it? What kind of tools did you use? Anything. This is the most critical word in the whole entire sentence. I do not care about professional work. If you want to talk to me about professional work, great. But I'm opening up the scope beyond just professional work, right? It's an invitation for you to share passion. It's not a question. It's not a conversation dead end. Exciting. Well, hopefully it's some kind of positive emotional connection and you get some stimulus from it. Recently, well, obviously that's, something short in a small time period that is reasonably accessible in your brain. So the question is, have you been working on anything exciting recently, right? There are a number of different avenues you can take that down. Now let's go back to the cleaner. So I was working late one night in a financial institution. Won't name who they are. By the sounds of the talk that we had previously, it may have been one of the clients, one of places where you work. So I was working late one day and I saw the cleaner. And I just thought I'd say, hi. And I said, hey, what do you do? The cleaner. That's a conversation dead end, right? Can't go anywhere. And then about 3 or 4 weeks later, I said, have you been working on anything exciting recently? Well, she races hamsters. Did anyone know you could race hamsters? I didn't even realize that was a thing. And then we got on to the fact that she's really interested in it and she goes to competitions and there's these things all over the world and they have, there's rankings and people win trophies. She just went off on one. But who's the most useful person to you in a business? It's actually the cleaner, because the cleaner knows a hell of a lot about what's going on. They are not the least stupid person in the room, right? So then we started to collaborate, have conversations over the next coming weeks and months, and she knew that certain activities were coming up. So we bonded and we started talking, and then when I went into a meeting once, I said something and no one knew how I managed to get it. Well, guess what? The cleaner told me. It took a couple of weeks. There was a little bit of social engineering there. But the fact that we could actually collaborate and connect helped me, right? So let's think about human interaction as we think about an API, right? So every conversation has inputs, your words, your tone, your body language. It has processing, emotional intelligence, and then finally it has outputs. The outputs are one of two things. One, the person that you're speaking to understands what you're saying. And secondly, and hopefully most importantly, you build some kind of connection with that person. So like any good API, right, clean inputs gives what? Reliable outputs. Well-documented endpoints, that stops integration failure, right? So if I have well-documented endpoints, I know how I introduce person X to person Y. If person X loves Microsoft and this person's working on Amazon, guess what? Probably not going to talk about clouds. And then I have good error handling, right? And this is the thing that we need to think about. How do we stop the problem whereby people have opinions and they hold them very strongly? And some people have opinions, but they hold them very loosely. This becomes very important when you're talking to someone that holds opinions very strongly and will not allow you to be able to maneuver or move, right? You have to have good error handling to be able to think about how you have those types of conversations. You have to have what I call it, you're playing 4-dimensional chess when you go and talk to somebody that holds their opinion strongly, because their default position is no. right? They're always going to say no to everything. So you've got to have 3 or 4 different ways of being able to stop the person from saying no. Hand gestures come into that, but also just preparing for the type of conversation you're going to have. This person here, I know, is going to hold this opinion very strongly because I'm going to tell them, I don't think we should be using Argo, I think we should be using Flux, and he or she will die on that hill. Well, I need to have good, valid reasons why I think we should be moving to Flux, not just because I think it's a better tool. So, the API doc method. So we've talked a lot about verbal communication. Who thinks they're an expert in written communication? No one. That's because you think I'm going to challenge you, right? So, good written communication has a clear endpoint. What am I doing at this stage here? We've talked about it. It was one of the layers of the stack. I'm setting the context, right? What's that first paragraph, that first block of text before the person reads the multiple paragraph email or the 10-page document? Attention grabber, and also making sure that they understand what's coming below. I define the parameters. What's this? Think of the stack. What am I doing when I define the parameters?
Setting the context.
I'm setting the context again. You seeing how important context is, how important layer 4 is in the stack? I include usage examples, right? So that could be real world applications. That could be me being on site, noticing something that's been going on for a long time. Or it could simply be, I've been on another client site and I've seen a kind of similar problem to what you're going through. What am I doing here? When I have usage examples. Kind of, yeah. Do you remember the triple P that I was talking about? Right, so if I can give multiple usage examples, when I hit them with the real critical point, I have some kind of validation and the fact that I've actually thought about what I'm saying before I really hit them with the home truth. And then finally, I add error handling, right? I try and get and think about any misunderstanding that may be happening when they read this document, when they read this email, and I try and put that into the email itself. Look, I know you may be thinking X, Y, and Z, but actually what I mean is A, B, C, right? How many times have you sent a message on Slack, Teams, WhatsApp, and it's been completely misconstrued? Everybody, right? And the reason why it's been misconstrued is because the person had a misunderstanding of what you meant, right? If we can add error handling in front of that, it stops them from when they're reading the next message, right? So the compounding effect here is when you start to put these pieces of the puzzle together, you don't just become 3 times better, right? You become very, very influential in the way that you can construct yourself and the way that you can communicate and collaborate. So do you remember Sarah from earlier? She took these principles on board. And she said, you know what, I'm going to restart this performance platform review thing that we were doing. So she went into the boardroom, shoulders back, good posture, used the gestures that we were talking about, presented the architecture using the triple P technique, right? And what happened is those people that were sat back before and said no leaned in because she immediately had them engaged. Right? And once she had them engaged, she can start to use certain types of techniques. She was gesticulating a lot with her hands. She was asking a lot of questions. She was thinking about what she was saying. Guess what? She practiced the conversation with all of the platform team before she had the conversation. She knew how important this was. Afterwards, project got successful, was the gold standard now for stakeholder interaction, and now Sarah is the VP of engineering. What changed? She just thought about how she was communicating before she actually started the conversation. That's it. Hand gestures, okay, that's just a layer on top. But actually, she just stopped for a second and thought, my code will talk for itself, my architecture will talk for itself. I just need to position myself effectively. So, final scan. What would change if you mastered these skills? 1, you'd get promoted within a year. Finally, you'll get that platform rebuild approved. You'll become the go-to technical leader. And now it's all screwed up. Or all of the above. And while you're doing that, I'll take a drink. So what you'll notice is that everything that we discussed about at the beginning, which were the problems, if you actually use these tools and techniques, you would get everything you ever wanted. Right? These are actually the precursor of the first question that I asked. So you can see the power of these, right? So what I've done is I've created the Platform Leaders Communication Playbook. So this goes into more detail, more depth, and it talks about those 5 critical conversation scripts that I've had over the 12 years that I've been doing platform engineering and working with customers. It's done 100 million improving transformations across multiple different verticals. Read the playbook. It's going to be awkward reading. I'm not going to lie to you. You're going to hear yourself having those types of conversations. Feel free to scan it. Feel free to take it. Use it. All I ask is you DM me on LinkedIn saying it was useful. If it wasn't useful, you can also DM me on LinkedIn. May or may not reply, but please do. So I want to leave you with something interesting, right? So we think as engineers that our technical expertise and our technical brilliance should just be understood, right? Why does no one understand that I've done this complete refactoring of this complete mess of Terraform and I've structured it really, really well? Why does no one understand what I'm doing? Why? What's going on, right? But what you'll notice is this, right? It's not your customer's job to understand that, right? It's not your stakeholder's job to understand what you're doing. But what it is it's our obligation and responsibility to ensure that they don't have a chance to forget you. How do you do this? How do you make sure they cannot forget you, right? This is not about ego. This is not about self-promotion, right? This is about one thing. I can successfully, accurately, and simplistically communicate my value to the stakeholders. If I can effectively communicate my value to my stakeholders, guess what? They won't forget me, right? 3,000 lines of Terraform, multiple pull requests, multiple repositories, right? I have to be able to get the value across to the stakeholder. If you can't, they're going to forget you. They're never going to call you back. You leave. You don't build the connections, right? It's not doom and gloom, but it's a little bit of doom and gloom. So, I give you one mission. After this, me getting off of stage, what I want you to do is I want you to ask that killer question, and I want you to see the types of responses you get back. Document them. Think about the types of responses that you got back when you asked what I called the conversation dead ends, those transactional conversations. Look at how it flows. Look at the types of conversations you're having. Look at how you get common ground very, very quickly, right? Practice that hand gesture. Use it. Use it in certain moments, right? Get comfortable using it to your ability. Next thing, this one's slightly awkward, maybe a little bit difficult to be able to do. I want you all to record yourself on Zoom. Right? You can guess where this is going. The next thing I want you to do is I want you to listen to yourself back, but I want you to do it in 3 ways. The first one is I want you to put everything on mute, and I just want you to look at your body language. How you position yourself, how you conduct, how you gesticulate. The second one is I want you to not watch the video, so hopefully it's on your phone, turn the phone down, and just listen to what you're saying. Are you using vocal tones? Are we going up and down? Or are we just, is it just monotone conversation all the way through? Thirdly, put them all together and look at the experience that the other person on the other end of the phone is getting. That alone will drastically change how you communicate with people, right? We're basically testing ourselves in production, and then we're doing a little bit of a retrospective at the other end. So, engineers who communicate innovate. So what do I mean by that? I believe that you can be the most effective communicator, and it is way more important than any programming language that you know or you may want to learn in the future. And also, engineers who can communicate, they don't just build better software, right? They build better futures for everybody. Thank you. Yes, she's actually a mentor of mine. So she taught me a couple of these techniques before. I miscommunicate, people find me aggressive, not trustworthy. Who wrote this? So I miscommunicate, people find me aggressive, not trustworthy. I would like to trick for a permanent change. So I would say, honestly, record yourself and watch yourself back. You have to be self-critical, right? So one of the things that you're probably coming across of is if you come across aggressive, it's probably your tone. It's probably not, it's actually less likely to be what you're saying, it's more likely to be how you're saying it. So think about how that gets portrayed and listen to yourself back. So turn the phone over and just listen to what you're saying. And then you'll hear yourself, where does that aggression kick in, or where does it sound aggressive? Right?
I know when I listen to myself, I know that I sound aggressive.
Okay.
That's not clear for me.
Mhm.
I don't mean it. I sound aggressive, angry.
So have you ever...
I know it, but that's just how I naturally come out.
So have you ever set the context in a conversation? So when you're having a conversation, do you ever say to someone, look, you know, sometimes I'm fully aware that I come across as potentially aggressive, but by the way, hands up, open palms. I'm not being aggressive at all. It's probably just, you know, the way I'm saying things, right? But please bear in mind that I'm not being aggressive. Have you tried that? So have you set the context before you start the conversation? Or have you started the conversation then retrospectively thought, oh crap, I came across quite aggressive then?
Yes.
So you need to set the context up front. I know, because I am self-aware,
Yes.
that I can come across aggressive when I'm talking to you. I'm not being aggressive at all. X, Y, Z, A, B, C. Start the conversation.
Thank you so much. That's a great tip.
The other thing is let the person talk more than what you're talking. So then you're not coming across as aggressive. Say what you need to say, stop, put your hands on your lap, and just let the person talk. And then digest what they're saying and then talk. So sometimes your aggression can come from me and you are having a conversation, and I just finished what I'm saying and you repeat immediately back to me. You could have a fantastic idea, right? But it sounds like you're not giving me a time, you're not even processing what I'm saying. You're just barrage. I'm just gonna steamroll you out the way. But actually, if you allow yourselves, just count in your head 3 seconds, one, and then talk, it at least subconsciously makes me think that you've listened to what I'm saying. Maybe you haven't listened at all, but subconsciously that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, you know what, he's actually spent some time thinking about what I've said there. So there would be my 2 techniques.
Am I right in
Yes.
thinking in that sort of situation, it's better to try and get through to people with questions rather than statements?
Yes, that would work as well. It genuinely depends on the type of conversation, right? There's a lot of, there's like a matrix to this, but that could work as well, right? If it's you coming across as defensive because you're making statements, you can flip the switch. What do you think about X, Y, Z? Let the person speak. Well, you know what, here's my opinion. I've done some research and I've looked at the way that we're building these repositories, and you know, I think they're a little bit convoluted. I would love your opinion on that. Let them speak. Conversation.
Yes, that's also a very good idea.
Not a paid promotion, but I'd recommend joining Toastmasters to improve communication. I don't know who Toastmasters are. I don't work for Toastmasters. You get peer feedback. Perfect. Yeah, practice. Practice. Have those conversations. Right. The more you practice conversations, the more you practice talking to people, the easier and easier it gets. Right. It's just practice. It's like riding a bike. You won't be able to do Tour de France straight away. Right. You have to go and fall off a couple of times and learn from your mistakes. Anyone else have any questions?
Steve,
Yeah.
what's your biggest challenge when you're working with clients when it comes to improve their communication skills?
Their ability to be able to listen. Right, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. It sounds ridiculously obvious, right? But sometimes people have to be able to have willingness to take the criticism, mentally digest what's been said, and then think about how they're going to perceive it, right? So as an external client, you come into an organization and you go, you know, like, WTF am I looking at? Well, that's not going to go down very well to start with, right? But actually, if I say, you know, I've been here a couple of weeks, and what I've realized in the meetings that I've had is X, Y, Z, A, B, C, right? So prime example, I was at an insurtech company, and my role there was to work out, they had serious cultural problems. Serious means serious. I'm talking like 2 or 3 people leaving every month for 18 months. And my job was to come in there and try and work out what was going wrong. So all I did for 1 week is I went to every meeting and I just sat there. Hands in my pockets, wasn't taking notes, wasn't doing anything, and all I was doing was listening. And what I noticed is there was 2 female engineers that were sat there. And for the 3 weeks that I was there, they never said a single word. Do you know who those 2 females were in the team? What do you think their roles were? Guess. Nope. Guess. Engineering teams. Nope, they were the testers. Guess what happened? They shipped a shitload of bugs because they had no respect for these people. So then I go into the room and I say to the senior level executives, right, you've got a serious cultural problem because you don't let females talk to you. You don't let females talk. You don't give them the position and power to feel empowered to have those types of conversations. How do you think that person felt? What are you talking about? We have, 50% females in the organization. We don't have a female, right? Because he didn't ingest what I said and actually think about what I was saying. I had all of the context, I had all of the proof points. I could point at things and I could give him examples, but he didn't like what he was hearing. So the difficulty that I have with clients is sometimes you have to tell them things that they don't want to hear, and then it's up to them how they take it. Sometimes they do something about it, sometimes they don't, and it's on them. Hey.
Have you ever found a situation you just can't turn around?
Oh yeah, many. Many. So, like, if you can't change your company, change your company. I'm a huge believer of that. Right? I'll give it 3 to 6 months. That's normally the duration of the contract that I'm going for. If we move and I can see I'm on an upward trajectory, I'll have that. I'll stay for longer and try and keep it moving. If it's not, I force myself to have my own exit interview. So I say to the CTO, the CEO, HR, I say, look, before I leave, I've decided that this isn't going anywhere. Can you all come to this meeting? I would deem it very, very respectful if you could give me 30 minutes of your time, and I want to give you a handover. And I give them all of the context, and then I say, look, please do with this what you want, but this is my study that I've done over the last 3-6 months. And then I leave. If you want me to come back in a couple of months and try again, happy to do that. Right? I never completely cut the bridge, but I leave them essentially with a fact sheet that they can't argue against. And it's very, very detailed, right? It's like, I was in this meeting with this people at this time, and these 2 people didn't speak for 90 minutes, and we were doing sprint planning. What the hell? So yeah, many times. And sometimes you just have to leave them with the facts and they come calling back. Or sometimes they don't, and they have a massive attrition problem and everyone just leaves. And then you're kind of like, I personally feel like at least I've tried. The fact that they're leaving is nothing to do with me. But I've done the bit that I could do, which is actually just shine the light on the problem. But yeah, many times. I can think of tons.
Good stuff.